What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Growth Hack Franchise Marketing Unleashed. I'm Marcus, founder of AdCloud, where we help franchise owners scale smarter. Today's topic, it's for every business owner who's ever stared at their calendar like, am I too busy or just broke? We've all been there, right? We're digging into that awkward middle zone where you're booked but not banking and trying to decide whether to hire more staff or finally fix your marketing. And as always, I've got AdCloud's creative director, McKenzie, with me to make sure we're asking the questions you've been dying to ask.
All right, Marcus, what's really behind this question? Because I know no one just casually wakes up and asks, should I hire or should I advertise today? They're spiraling. Something has happened that's like making them get to this point. So this question shows up when something's clearly not clicking. So what is the real panic that's hiding underneath?
I think there's a lot of value in that old saying, hire slow, fire fast. I think that as small business owners, it's very easy to become emotionally connected to our staff. And I'm speaking from experience as well, right? It's very easy to become connected and to feel a sense of, as a CEO, you are now responsible for them, their well-being, their financials. While right or wrong, you naturally, the human side of you does that. But I think many times small business owners fall into this piece where they try to blame everything external of the staff not producing before actually looking at what might actually be the problem and why
Right.
they're not converting it. And we see this time and time again in businesses that we help. At AdCloud, we really focus on the full circle of marketing. We don't just come in and say, hey, or leads. We look at, hey, how is your staff performing? Are they converting memberships? We're pretty ingrained into a location's staff and what they're doing and their performance
Absolutely.
metrics. And so we get to see a lot of the good, the bad, the ugly, and sometimes say, hey, staff X is not producing like staff Y. It might be time for a change or a coaching moment and things in that nature. And when we look at those things, it 9 times out of 10, maybe 8 times out of 10, I won't go that far, it's usually staff related, unless you just don't have the marketing volume. If your volume is really low and those things are happening and you're not getting enough lead count or whatever, that's a different story. That's pretty easy to diagnose and say, hey, we don't have this. But if you have a fairly steady lead count and things, but you're like, gosh, my revenue is just not peaking, right? We have high churn, whatever those things are. You, in your membership based model, you need to start to look at, why are all of your staff not converting extremely high? Now, that's not to say all of your staff is going to convert high. You won't. You'll have 1 to 2 stars, and then you'll have 3 to 4 to 5 mediocre ones.
Right.
But what you need to start doing is taking that star and replicating and figuring out what is their process, what is their pitch, what are they doing, and try to train and coach the others. And out of those other 3, 1 to 2 might be able to get there, but there's likely going to be one that isn't going to make the cut. And I think that you owe it to yourself as a business owner that has invested time, money, effort, all of the things into it, to value your time, to say, hey, this probably isn't the right fit for you, to move on to someone who can help take your business to the next level, which is also going to help the other 4 staff members because they want to grow. They want to grow their books. They want to stay with a company for X amount of years. And you can't do that if you're having to close the doors 2 years from now because you tried to hold on to this person that wasn't being helpful or building the company.
So what is the biggest mistake that business owners make when they hit this moment? Do they freeze? Do they panic hire, toss money at the problem and just hope that it works out? What is the move that feels right, but maybe blows up later? What do you commonly see there?
Most 90 immediately jump to, there's not enough volume. We're not converting. Revenue's not growing because of churn. It must be marketing's fault. It must be the agency's fault because they don't want to have that kind of interaction with the staff and say, hey guys, you're not cutting it. So usually the fast track is, well, I need a new agency, right? Or marketing's not working. We got to change this up. Or we have to decrease the price of the product and go super cheap on an intro offer. But that type of reaction is based solely on opinion, not data. And you hear us talk about it a lot. That's where everyone gets in trouble. Take your opinion and your own personal self-doubt out of it. Look at the data. I could walk into any business tomorrow And if they have the data, look at it and say, here's where your bottleneck is. Maybe it is marketing. I'm not saying we're right 100% of the time, maybe 90% of the time. But from what we have seen across hundreds and hundreds of locations, most of the time it is staff oriented, not all the staff. Now, sometimes it's not the staff's fault. Sometimes you got to look a little inward. Hey, I'm not a good coach. I'm not a leader. It's something I have to work on. I'm not a good communicator. I have come across many owners who are not great managers. And that's okay as long as you recognize it. As long as you recognize that and put a fix in place, hire a location manager. If you're just like, hey, this isn't me, this isn't my forte, I am no good at this, hire someone to come in and help do that. But when you turn a blind eye and assume that you're great at everything, that's when you run into those troubles.
So, how can you tell if it's time to fix the marketing before adding more employees? Is there like a telltale sign of, okay, we need to go into the marketing and fix this, or maybe we need to switch out some of our staffing? What's the differences that you see of how to know what you're supposed to do in that moment?
I think on marketing, always start there because it's much easier to adjust marketing than to fire staff and hire. So make sure you do your due diligence and start there. Go and look and say, okay, what is our lead vol? What's our lead to booked appointment ratio? Listen, if you are 30% or higher on conversion to booked appointment, it's probably not on the marketing side. Now, if you go and you say, hey, we're only getting 10 leads a month and our conversion rate is even at that rate at 30%, that is a problem. You need to look at, is it the offer? Is it the service? Is it the demographics? Then it's marketing related for sure, because you don't have enough sample size. Everything's about sample size. You don't have a big enough sample size to really decide or determine if your staff is any good or not. Because if they're only getting 5 opportunities a month to convert a membership or something in that nature,
Yeah.
it's a toss up.
Yeah.
Can they convert 50% of that? Maybe not. It's only 5 people. So if your lead volume's not very heavy, meaning if you're a service-based business looking to generate anywhere from 40 and up, depending on your price point and what the service is that you're marketing, 40 leads plus, and some of that will depend on your budget. Now, if you're generating 10 leads at your budget is $200 a month, again, that's your own. That is an identifier that you're not spending enough in marketing, which happens a lot. Most people look at marketing as a cost, not an investment. You should be investing. It should be one of your heaviest investments in your brand is the marketing, because ultimately it's what drives it all. And so those factors play a part in that. But if you are converting, you're getting a lot of leads, you're getting 50 to 80 leads a month, and 50, 60% of them are coming in the door, but your membership conversion rate is 7%, and that's your average between 5 staff. Now we need to start to look at staff. Offer and staff. Maybe your pitch is wrong. Like maybe you just have a terrible membership pitch. There's so many little things, right? So just to dive into those details, if your intro offer is super low, let's say your intro offer is $29, $39 for the first service, cost is $129. Price gap is a really hard upsell. They're coming in with the mentality, especially from social audience, they're coming in with the mentality of like, I'm spending $30. By the way, you should give me 100 more. You like that. It's hard to get there. And so you have to start to think about, okay, do I want more volume in the door, or do I want to lessen that price gap? And that can either be because you're going to reduce the membership cost, or you're going to bring up your intro offer to a $59, $69 offer and bridge the gap there, or find a way to pitch a new offer. Do things. We see brands like this one called the Elite Deal. Come in for your intro offer, and then if you sign up that day, you get your service for free. So you're signing up for a membership for $100, $149, but your service is free that day. So in our minds as a consumer, we're like, okay, so I'm getting 2 things, but I'm getting 1 free. It's the BOGO. So it's all a mental play. It's no real different than saying, hey, I'm gonna do this and pay for the membership or discount the membership. But in my mind, I'm like, oh, cool. I love this service. And now you're going to give it to it for free. And I get the membership. And so and then I'm getting more discounts on other products when I come back in. To me, it's a win-win. And we see that convert extremely high. Now, if your offer is doing well and you have one of your staff members that is converting, for example, we have a Deca location. They have a lash artist that converts at like 70 to 80%.
I remember you
New,
talking about her.
right.
I was going to bring that up.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, new appointment, they come in and they're buying the
Wild.
membership. It's
Yeah.
impressive. Now, the other five staff there, not as great. Not to say they're all terrible, but they're like 50%, 40%, 30. I think there's one that's lower than that. What that tells us is there's not a problem with the offer. It, someone can sell it, right? It's your MVP. As long as you can prove it once, then you're okay. That just means that the others, one, just maybe aren't good at sales. And sometimes you do have to, I don't want to make it seem like so black and white that like if they can't sell, they're a bad employee, because they may be your best cheerleader. They may be your best.
Well, and for that, for example, with lashes, they could be great at lashes, but they can't sell. So what do you do in that instance?
In those instances, what we usually recommend is that they have a front of house takes
Right.
over that, so that instead of that person pitching, that there's this natural transition to the salesperson that is just on their way out. Hey, by the way, did you know you could? Or what we see more commonly is coaching and saying, hey, what I'm doing, here's what's working. You better at that and more comfortable. At the end of the day, everyone can sell. It's just confidence and comfortability. Those are the two factors in it for the most part. If you know what you're selling and you believe in it. And so again, it's not always black and white, because if they are extremely good at the service they're giving, they have great like client manner and can take it, like that's going to be far more longer lasting and more beneficial. So it's not like, hey, you can't sell, get out. This isn't Wall Street. You know, you have to start to look at those things, but then start to meter it and say, hey, okay, 90 days, 60 days, we've got to get you, or we have to figure something else out, whether that's employment oriented or it's let's funnel those those people down the right path so that we can convert them. But if you're just turning a blind eye, 12 months down the road, you're going to be in trouble because you haven't been monitoring. And I think a lot of business owners miss the boat when they aren't creating a competitive nature. As humans, we are naturally competitive. We want to compete and do those things. You have to build incentives in your brand for them to continue to want to sell and do all of those things and feel like they're part of something bigger and that they're growing with you, not just growing your business so that you can have more success and all these things and they're not feeling the return. And so finding ways to say, if you sell 10 memberships this month, give you percentage of that, you know, and if you do that for 12 months, here's a raise, et cetera. There's so many different ways that you can incentivize your staff to work harder for you, but also know that they're working harder for them in their future career as well.
So is there ever a time that, say, you're fairly booked, right? Again, let's just use lash artists. Say your best lash artists are completely booked out and you've got 2 or 3 other lash artists that nobody's wanting to book with. Could that also be a marketing issue there too? Because your books aren't full, but you have this one lash artist that's always full. Is that something you could fix with marketing? Or is that just something where you have to step back and say, okay, nobody wants to book with these lash artists? Like, how do you balance that?
Yeah, I think in most brands, they're on like a kind of a Rolodex, for lack of a better term. With most of the brands that we work with, the booking isn't necessarily based on I want to book with so and so. Most people book unless you're a member. So members naturally, so what we say like in lashing, they are building their books just like a hairstylist would do. And when you get members, you naturally are going to go back to Jane Doe, right? The same person. But new clients coming in, it's randomized based on first availability because that's what converts the best. Because if you're like, hey, we're going to push everyone to Sarah, but Sarah has no availability until next month, no one's going to book that. Now, at some point, you can get to the point where your primary lash artist, like they've been there for a long time, they're fully booked. And then they start to become member focused and they don't take new client appointments anymore because they're so booked up it doesn't make sense. And you want the other staff that you have to be able to fill their books and have that opportunity. But all of that goes back to looking at data, having a good platform that shows you utilization rates. How utilized is each staff member on any given day of the week? Because this person that has a lot of members may still have open utilization on a Saturday. The data will lead you where you need to go if you know where to look and if you're asking the right questions. But I think that's realistically, and if you're not, If you are running ads and you're trying to drive them down this pathway of you should book with Sarah, who only has scattered availability, it's no wonder why your conversion is low. It needs to be first availability. Let them pick from that point on. We do that with our dog. When I'm booking like a grooming appointment. Now, and listen, I love our groomer and I'm like, hey, like I really don't want anyone else. But there's been times where out of convenience, like we only had a certain time that we could do. And
Right.
so when we selected her, it was like, oh, she wasn't available for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. We had to go with someone else because I needed something sooner. So I said, I don't really care what staff it is. The dog smells. All right, we've got to fix it. And that is just a prime example of it's not always the best case to try and funnel someone. Because we get asked all the time, can you just funnel it to this person or funnel it, just leave it open because you want to cater to the consumer, not your own needs. Cater to the consumer, what they need to book, what they're looking for, and you'll find success there. But if you want to kill your conversion, try to force them down a specific pathway with no availability and see what happens. But here's the truth. This isn't just a hiring question, it's a clarity question. You don't need more people if the people you have standing around are standing around waiting for leads. You don't need more ads if your team is drowning in bookings they can't fulfill. The secret, know which lever to pull and when. And don't confuse busy with profitable. Make sure you're looking at the data. Thanks for listening to the Growth Hack Franchise Marketing Unleashed. If this episode hit a little close to home, you're not alone. Hit follow, leave us a review, and send this to that one business buddy who keeps hiring but still isn't growing. We'll catch you next week.